Jai Hind everyone. My name is Dr. Anuj Kumar. I am working as assistant professor in the Department of Typec and Mechanical Engineering at Akgec Engineering College, Ghaziabad. And today we are going to start our second lecture in the lecture series of Idea to Business Model. The lecture 1 talks about the product idea to product design, how we can convert a raw, abstract idea and considering its feasibility, how to incorporate different product design strategies into that idea. In the second lecture, we are going to start with new product development process. So this lecture will be a holistic integration of the previous one, where we only talk about the idea generation, idea screening, idea feasibility, and how to incorporate the design part. Here we will see the overall product development cycle, how we start from idea and we end with the production or the market startup. So in this lecture, the motivation behind the new product development is from concept to market ready product. So you start with a idea which is translated or which is accumulated into a defined concept, and then you have to convert it into a market ready product. So this is the holistic approach of new product development, or in general we say product development. So how the design is actually developed into a real product, that is we are going to understand in this lecture. And again, as I said in the previous lecture, we will take these two examples of AQI meter, which is air quality index meter, and a portable or a affordable 3D printer. So we will continue our journey with these two certain examples to understand each and every step. So first we have to understand what is this new product development. So it is a set of instruction or a systematic process so that we can follow the path from idea to the final product. It is not a hit and trial method, but it's a systematic approach. And why you are doing this new product development? If you are not doing it, the big companies, they have invested so many hours, so many capital hours, so many resources, investments in this new product development process. Otherwise, what they will occur is product failure. In the initial phase itself, the product will fail. Cost overruns. In the planning stage, you have not defined, you have not analyzed the actual cost, and the cost might be overrun. That will lead to product or service failure. Poor market acceptance. Initially, you have think of that my idea is, it's better than anyone and it will penetrate into market like anything. But over the period of time, if you have not planned, if you have not followed these systematic steps of new product development or a product development, then these risks might happen. So that's why many startups, large industries, all the enterprises, they invested much in the planning stage itself, and a new product development process set the guidelines, a systematic behavior, how to follow these paths. So that is the motivation, that is the process. So the important term is it's a systematic process and it is not random trial and error. It is not like first we design, then we prototype, and then we think, oh, it is not going to happen. So you have to plan each and every stage beforehand, before encountering any risk or any complexity. So these are the important stages of new product development, and we have to understand each one in this lecture series. For example, as you can see, these two first stages of idea generation and idea screening, we have discussed in depth in the previous lecture. The idea generation comes from customer pain points. I have already talked about that. You have to understand, you have to empathize with the customer to understand the needs of the customer. You have to see the technological push. You have to see the societal needs, the government policies. You have to benefit yourself from the acumen of different entrepreneurs. You have to do the surveys to get the idea. So you will get the idea for a real life problem, to solve a real life problem. But every idea should not be converted into a viable product. That's why you need idea screening. You have to screen that idea, you have to diagnose that idea based on different feasibilities. For example, technical feasibility, financial feasibility, market viability, risk and complexities associated with it. We have discussed all these things in the lecture 1 of product idea to product design. So these are the essential first stage of a product development. We start with the idea, a abstract idea. Then when we have 2-3 ideas and we screen them out and we have selected, for example, 2 ideas. The one is AQI, the one is 3D printer. This is the idea. So we have certain sets of ideas, and by screening we have come across these 2. We have finalized these 2. Then comes the next stage of concept development. Idea is vague, it is abstract. Then you have to give them a certain shape to produce a feasible concept on which that product or that idea should be working. So this is the concept development stage. Then comes the design part of it. In the design part, which is the last slide of my lecture 1, in the design part we have to think of the manufacturability, the system level design, the material system, the manufacturing process, the shape and dimensions of the part, and other aspects of design. Once the design is finalized, your idea is becoming into reality, then you think of prototyping. We will discuss all these steps in detail in the upcoming slides as well. I'm just giving you an overview here. Start with the idea, you have to screen it, you have to develop the concept around it, you have to design the part, the system level designing, how to manufacture it. Then you have to test it or you have to prototype it. Prototyping is nothing but a initial replica of your actual product that you have to do. How to do that, we will see in a few bit. Once you have your prototype, then you go for testing and validation. You have to test that prototype and see beforehand if there are any discrepancies, if there is any complexity, if there is any problem in that working of that product. Then you can go for again design part. You have to again think of a better design, a better solution. And finally, when you validate that part, when you validate that tested part, then you can go for the production. So the overall cycle or the process of product development is like that. You start with the idea, then you screen that idea, you develop a concept around that, you design that part or a product, you prototype that product, initial replica, you test on that, and you iterate. It is very less chance that in the first run your prototype will be validated. So you have to go for iterations, and that is here written. In real engineering, we often go back and forth specifically between these 3 stages. What I mean to say, so product development is a iterative process. That means once you test the first prototype, you come across different discrepancies, different problems, issues, complexity within your product or service. Then you should go back to the design step and you modify your design. You do the certain changes which are required to improve the performance of the product or the service. Again, you prototype it, again you test it, and you do this iterative cycle unless you get your desired properties in the product or the characteristics. So I hope this process of new product development should be clear. Now we go for the individual parts. So the first stage is idea generation. We have covered this, but again, you have to identify the customer needs, customer problems, multiple ideas. For a single problem, you can have multiple ideas to solve that. And then you have to do the screening of these particular ideas, which one you should pick. That is the core principle. Feasibility and market potential, you have to see that. For example, AQI meter, many possible designs. There are many possible designs that you can think of for the portable AQI meter. Similarly, various vendors, various OEMs are available for 3D printing market. You study all those 3D printers and you came across certain problems, specific problems they are having. And then you came across a solution or an idea that I can develop a affordable 3D printer D, which will solve or which will diminish the problems of A, B or C. Maybe not completely, but partially. But it is a better product and inspired by the customer needs, by the market survey. So you have to understand that the real problem is the foundation for the new idea or a novel idea. So again, you can have different ideas for a real life problem, but you have to choose the feasible one, not the best one. There could be a best idea, a AQI meter that can do all the things, but its cost, its manufacturability can be very complex. So you should not in particular decide for the best idea in first iteration. You decide for the feasible one, which is feasible in your given resources and opportunities. Then the important part is concept development. You have the idea, you did the screening. Now you have to develop the concept around that, and you have to define the features and functionality. As usually I take the example of trip. You think of a trip, that is the idea. You plan the each and every step, every itinerary of that trip, that is concept. You have to define the features, the functionality of that particular product. That product could be disintegrated into part 1, 2 or 3. This is the whole part of AQI meter. There has to be some sensors, there has to be some screens, there has to be some power system, battery system within it. So you have to think of that concept, that features, and how you are going to incorporate them. This is the basic idea. So for AQI meter, you have to think of sensors, display or mobile app. You have for 3D printer, you have to see for Cartesian coordinates or build volume. The features of that product, particular product, you have to think of that. In this stage 3, you have to think of the design part, the engineering part, detailed design of that components, CAD modeling and engineering analysis, material selection, which is important part. For AQI meter, which material you are going to select? Are you going to use the metallic casing or the plastic or the polymer casing? You have to decide in the design stage itself. Where the sensor is placed in the AQI meter, how these sensors are integrated, these all have to design, all have to decide in the design stage itself. Now come the important stage of prototyping in the new product development stage. Once you have the idea, you have the concept, and you decided the design part of it, now you are ready for the prototyping. Prototyping is nothing but the first replica of your product, or I can say first functional replica. The more you know, suitable term should be functional replica. So for your product, if you can develop a functional prototype of that idea of that product, you can test it, you can validate it, that whatever is my vision for that product should be met or not. So creation of a initial working model, and it can be a physical prototype or a functional prototype. In this, industry 4.0 era, functional prototypes are of great dominance. You need a functional prototype to test, to showcase your capabilities, to attract the investors, and to push your product in the market. What are the tools? The very important, the very famous is 3D printing, which we are taking as an example itself. We are taking a affordable 3D printing example to understand this whole cycle, and 3D printing itself is the part of prototyping, essential part of prototyping in industry 4.0, digital manufacturing, cyber physical space. This 3D printing, or usually said additive manufacturing, is an important part. Not only this, we can use CNC electronic prototyping as well for different type of products. But you have to understand the prototyping itself is important to test your idea, to test your product, to test your design. So for a 3D printer, the prototypes might be look like not a sophisticated 3D printer, the final part, but a frame, a powder bed, or a simple bed with simple extruder, with the motors of XY control, and the powder bed with the Z control. So these parts can be assembled and can be put together to test the working of the affordable 3D printer. You have to test that prototype for its working. This is the important time. Prototype helps you to see the test reality, not the assumptions. You have taken certain assumptions, many assumptions during your design stage, during your concept stage, and you have to formalize all those assumptions in the prototyping stage. That is the idea. In testing and validation, once you have your prototype, you have to test it to validate your desired objectives. You have decided in the initial stage that the AQI meter should measure this, this, and this. In the testing stage, you have to ascertain that your prototyping can measure these PM particles, the SOx level, the NOx level in the air pollution or not. So in the testing phase, you have to go for the reliable testing, because if that testing is not reliable, these products will come back into your supply chain again, detecting drawbacks, faults, other discrepancies. So this testing phase is very important, and as you have seen in the software development also, the testing phase is very important. Any bugs that could be there in the program or the application should be detected in the testing phase. For AQI meter, sensor ki accuracy, is it accurately measuring the PM particles or not? Print quality, is 3D printer developed prototype is able to print actually or not? This stage is production planning and launch. Once you have tested your product, if there are any discrepancy, you go back to design stage, you change the design, you modify that, again you test it, validate it. Once you validated that your prototype is working as per your norms, whatever you decided in the beginning, then you are ready for the production planning and launch of that product. In this, you can design, you have to finalize your design, you have to plan the production process, which is going to be our next lecture number 3. We discuss in depth which kind of production systems we can opt for manufacturing different type of products. Prepare for market launch. we have to include cost estimation, supply chain planning. We will going to see these in lecture 4 as well. So for AQI meter, you can see the example of PCB manufacturing, circuit board जो होगा उसकी manufacturing. You can see the 3D printing component, sourcing and assembly planning. These kind of planning you have to do in the production planning stages. So as the new product development systematic approach started from idea and ended with the product launch, now you have to think of two different aspects of AQI meter and 3D printer. These are two ideas, they will solve two different problems, but there is different aspects of understanding these two examples. AQI meter could have a faster development cycle, fewer iteration and lower cost, whereas the 3D printer, a mechanical or mechatronics device, is longer development cycle because of so many moving parts. Multiple iterations are required to fine tune that final product. You have to go again from design testing, you have to do these iteration many times because the complexity is higher. So the whole process you have to understand with the context of idea generation. So this is the summary of that lecture. We started with a structural process of NPD. It involved multiple stages. Iteration is essential to refine your product, and proper NPD reduce failure risks. In the next lecture, we will focus on production system, how to produce that prototype into a final product with different type of production system.